Hey, what's up guys? It's been a crazy couple months. I've been calling it the summer of content. Another day, another vlog. I've just been really inspired by all the comments, motivated to put my face out there again. And I kind of wanted to talk about a new thing today or something else today. Is a sensei born or created? And I asked you this as someone myself who I've trained under senseis. I've trained as a sensei in a sensei position. I'll tell you a little story about myself. I used to own a martial arts school pre-COVID down in San Antonio, Texas. If you guys follow the karate culture thing, that's kind of what we landed on in terms of what was the next step after we built our YouTube channel. It was to make a physical space so that people could come in and visit us and train. And we got a lot of visitors. Super grateful for that. But when it closed down, it was a really, I guess, a big moment for me in terms of like self-reflection. What do I do now? What's my next steps? If you guys don't know, I practically spent my 20s building up to that point. And I say that because I did most of my hard training in my 20s. I built a lot of skill sets from school that allowed me to freelance and stuff like that. So everything was in the right spot for me personally to open up a school, and so I did. And you know, when you're in your 20s, especially your early 20s, and you have this goal and you reach it, you put in all this work, all this effort, and you actually accomplish it. Felt like I was just gonna teach for the rest of my life. And you could say I was defined by that role. I was defined by my drive, defined by the channel, defined by the wanting and the desire to spread what we learn and teach people. So when it closed down, naturally I was a little lost. So as a personal practice for myself, essentially I stopped teaching, one, and I tried to rediscover what got me into martial arts. I visited a lot of schools. I trained a lot by myself. I went to a lot of open mats. I dove into hard training. It wasn't like cold turkey. I was still doing private lessons on the side. And then I moved, and that's where I really became more of that, people call it like Ronin or martial Ronin. I don't know, that term still doesn't sit well with me, but it makes sense. You're a masterless wanderer trying to figure out and navigate life, and you're still into martial arts, so you want to train. The thing with me, and this isn't like exclusive to me, I'm sure a lot of people have gone through this, but it was just, do you put on the white belt in another karate school and just learn Kihons again down the line? Learn a whole new set of kata? I mean, that crossed my mind, but it wasn't like on the forefront of my thought. And this also goes back to a sensei born or created, because what I found in those couple of years of training hard and self-discovery was I kept trying to find places to fit in so I could become a teacher again. And I've met a lot of people in my martial arts path, are way better than me, more knowledgeable than I am, but just wanted to be that gym rat, that gym killer, the one that never competed. I competed a lot in my 20s and in my teens, and competed in all the major jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff. And that was just like, you know, the young brain trying to prove himself and be arrogant. A lot of people you meet when you're training are vicious, they're amazing, they're super talented, and they just want to train, and they'll take that knowledge to the grave. Even some close buddies of mine just say, I just want to learn as much as I can and then die. And what's interesting for me is when I entered a Shorin-ryu dojo my first time, I was already a Bruce Lee fanatic through middle school. I was already training in other styles. I ranked up in a lot of different styles: Kung Fu, Kaji Kempo, Kyokushin, Shotokan, Ishiru. I did all these styles growing up. And then when I found Shorin, I was like, this might be the one. This is the one I want to like dive deep into. But even at that point, I was already coming in as a white belt to a new dojo, but I already had experience in other arts. So naturally I was helping out, you know, like the mom on the side. I was the 13-year-old helping out the mom how to do forms. I was the 14-year-old helping the kids strap on their sparring gear and stuff like that. So it was always built into my journey that I mentored, and eventually led classes as senpai. And then in college, as you guys know, I opened up a karate club, and that lasted all 4 years. I was pretty much younger or the same age as most of my students growing up, and it was always a disconnect between like, hey, I gotta maintain that level of authority and not put down my shield and all that stuff, and have that proper face. And it's always backfired on me many times, where like I try to get closer with students, but there's always that wall there, because they are speaking to someone of a higher belt and all that stuff. So trying to navigate that. But yeah, going back to the topic of this vlog, it's like, what trait do you think creates that type of urge, or that need, or that want to become a sensei? And then the opposite, right? What trait is it to not want to be, but to have all this knowledge? Because I truly believe like there are people that are wired to have the ability to process things like martial arts in a lot easier manner, right? And I tell my buddy this, who teaches and trains jiu-jitsu, it's like you're given this gift, and it feels like a disservice not to use that to help others. And this is my perspective. It feels like a disservice to that gift to not use it, right? I've always been, even in high school and college, I've always been big on creating different analogies to explain karate concepts to different people, because some people process things visually, hands-on, etc. It was big for me to be like, karate is like a blank for this person, and karate is like a blank for another person. It was a cool game for myself to really figure out what analogy worked best for each person. I feel like someone who doesn't care to spread the knowledge wouldn't even bother with that type of brain teaser. And it's not to say it's good or bad. I think it's just different, right? You need to have those killers that are just gym rats, and just you're the enforcer on the mat. You've been there for 30 years. You're the one that people go to if they want a hard round of sparring, and you go home, rinse and repeat, come back the next day, and you do it again. I would love to be that guy in the corner that everyone fears and respects. But what happens to me is I always am the person that looks over and says, hey, if you did it like this, it might make a little more sense to you, right? I enjoy training hard, but I do enjoy even more building up the people around me so that they can not only get better themselves and understand things better themselves, but they also help elevate me, right? The more they're better, the more they can challenge me, and then and vice versa. It's a continuous feedback loop. Martial arts on the surface level is easy, right? You are trying to do damage to another person without getting damage yourself. But when you take into account all the ranges, all the skill sets, punching, kicking, elbows, grappling, submissions, joint locks, body awareness, balance, how much time it takes just for you to even start thinking about strategy, right? Coordination, footwork, balance, posture, for you to even train without getting injured, strength training, stretching, flexibility, endurance without getting winded. All these things need to be in place, and then you could start talking about the fun stuff, like the art of war, the strategies of combat, escalation, use of force. When you put in law into all this, when you put in weapons and long distance weapons and self-defense in the street, you put on shoes. There's like so many fun things you could get to, but it takes a while for you to even build a body to get to there, and it's tough. I mean, I've given hundreds of intro classes to people I'll never see ever again, but the challenge is always fun for me, and for me to answer the question that I'm posing to you guys, I feel like being a sensei is something you most likely are born with and fostered through your interactions with other people, and if you're mentored into that position, that's even better. And I do think someone who has the desire to be a teacher, they can definitely work on that skill set and keep improving on it. I think you can always work on the skill of being a good instructor. Either that's learning how to describe techniques better, teach, and how to disseminate knowledge. that's a skill set that everyone needs to continue to work on. It also makes you just a good training partner, right? You don't have to be like a black belt teaching a white belt, but if you're training with a buddy, it might be good to have some skills like that to help foster your buddy's growth, and also take criticism yourself. So what do you think? Is a sensei born or created? I know I ranted a lot. I'm trying to be a little more intentional with these vlogs. I have my mic set up now, so hopefully I could do some good audio processing afterwards. That way you're not hearing the highway and the AC blowing into my phone mic. So Motivation Monday, so have a good week. Train hard, fight easy.